Can you believe it? It's time for chapter 23! I glance nervously around the bar, but I can't see him. That's right, Christian is being all stalkery. I see him. My heart leaps. Italics, he's really here. For me. Christian, this is my mother, Carla. Mrs. Adams, I'm delighted to meet you. What a charmer! We got a small amount of hyphenation. He gives her the Christian Grey patented, full-blown, no prisoners smile. Hyphenation. My mother's lower jaw practically hits the table. I sound like a sophomore on amphetamines. Too high-pitched even for my own ears. High-pitched like a sophomore on amphetamines is a simile I've never heard before and hope to never hear again. She's wearing a new top that her mum bought her, which is great because it's not Kate's. Her mum is just staring at Christian. Because he's so good looking. He says, if you don't want me here, I have a plane on standby at the Hilton Head. Of course, he has a plane on standby. Probably has a helicopter and a blimp just in case. And they're having the Mrs. Robinson discussion. Anastasia asks why their relationship ended, and he says, her husband found out. Wow. I don't think you'll ever convince me that she's not some kind of pedophile. He snaps at her, and then she says, did you love her? At which point her mum comes back, so we'll never know. Christian Grey excuses himself and says, goodbye, Anastasia. And her mum says, it's so nice to hear someone using your full name. Christian's so suave. Beautiful name for a beautiful girl. Bleh. Vomit. He kisses her on the cheek and then leaves, and her italics are thinking, damn control freak bastard. She just gets so angry. Her mum says, I think you need to talk to each other. The UST in here, it's unbearable. I had to Google UST. Apparently it stands for unresolved sexual tension. Go to him. This is a beautiful location. Very romantic. She's really pushing Anastasia to spend the night in a hotel with Christian. What kind of a mother are you? She's going to his room. She goes into his hotel room and the furnishings are ultra modern. Very now. That's an exercise in tautology. Ultra modern, very now. Like, super present, extremely current, very much in the moment. She says, you didn't answer my question. He says, no, I didn't love her, and her italics think, well, thank heavens for that. Are you coming or going? Coming, I murmur. Oh, I hope so. Hilarious pun. He's kissing her neck, and he says, are you bleeding? Yes, I whisper. This is about to get gross, isn't it? He's making her touch herself on her sex. And then when he lets go, he says, carry on. She still says sex instead of vagina, but she totally says clitoris. Clitoris is the correct use of the word clitoris. He grabs her and starts making out with her and then says, when did you start your period, Anastasia? Which is such a sexy question. He takes out her tampon. This might be too far for me. I don't think I can deal with this. And they are sexing. At least they didn't do anything weird with the tampon. She wonders, will it always be like this? So overwhelming? So all-consuming? So beguiling? Probably not. This is just the honeymoon. She's on his chest, inhaling his sweet, intoxicating Christian scent. And her italics are thinking, I must not nuzzle. I must not nuzzle. She gets in trouble when she nuzzles. She's lying in his arms in a post-coital stupor, and then, I remember that I have my period. I'm bleeding, I murmur. Doesn't bother me, he breathes. They go and have a bath. She's pushing the issue on Mrs. Robinson, basically saying, what would you have been like if you'd never met her? And he's just gone completely silent. Mrs. Robinson saved him from himself, and if it hadn't have been for her, then he would have ended up the way of his birth mother, who we must remember was a crack whore. My subconscious has her Munch's scream face on again. Every time with that subconscious. Anastasia calls Mrs. Robinson Mrs. Pedo, and he says, enough or I'll put you across my knee. He says, you haven't replied to my email. This is the 2-page essay about feelings. And she's thinking, truth or dare time. My subconscious and inner goddess glance nervously at each other. Hell, let's go for truth. There was never a dare option. That wasn't... It's what? They're in the bath and she splashes him playfully. Did you just splash me? Oh, Miss Steele. I think we're done talking. Everything ignites inside me. We have ignition. His eyes are hooded again and glowing. That's a bit worrying. They're sexing in the bath. We are wet mouths and tongues, tangled hair and moving hips. And one must assume
other body parts also. Scratch that, they're now all sensation. It seems that every time she is approaching orgasm recently, she's all like, wow, I love him. Her orgasm has devoured her whole, which is sad. We'll miss her. He has the orgasm also and cries out, Anna baby, stirring and touching the depths of my soul. It's just so soul touching when somebody calls out your name during sex, you know, it just touches the soul. They're now in bed together naked. There's no mention of what she's doing about the bleeding situation, so a happy surprise for housekeeping tomorrow. Ooh. He confesses that he has paid for sex. He was shocked when she wore his underwear, and my inner goddess pole vaults over the 15-foot bar. Not a 15-foot bar, the 15-foot bar, implying that there's always been a 15-foot bar in her brain space, and her inner goddess just pole vaulted over it. What else is in there? And then of course she wore no panties to meet the parents. The bars moved to 16 feet. She agrees to go back to the Red Room of Pain. He says, I want to do something tomorrow, but it's a surprise. That's the end of chapter 23. What happened in chapter 23? Christian took a private jet to go and be with Anastasia like a stalker weird guy. He told her that he'd never loved Mrs. Robinson, but got really pissed off about her calling her Mrs. Pedo. They had sex despite the fact that she's on her period and created a lovely little mess for the maids to clean up in the morning. He mentioned that he's totally paid for sex. Hooray! She agreed to go back to the Red Room of Pain this weekend, and he's got a surprise planned for tomorrow, so stay tuned for the next chapter where that exciting thing will happen, probably.